are listening to the most comprehensive paranormal archive on the internet.
Welcome to Salsido Paranormal. I'm your host, James Salsido, and tonight I'm continuing my series review of the Book of the Damned by Charles Fort. For all the links to all the things, including ways to listen and support the show and ways to follow friends of the show, check out the website, and that is salsidoparanormal.com. That's SALSIDO paranormal.com. And we were in the middle here of a chapter 21 in the Book of the Damned by Charles Fort. So let me just find my spot here again, and we will keep on going. Okay, now this is funny. Going back to the previous episode, I'm recording 2 here tonight. This says here that Lee for Brace, in quotation marks here, who sees so many meteorological phenomenon in your excellent paper, in quotation marks, should have signed himself the modern Ezekiel, there you go, Mattel, for his vision of wheels is quite as wonderful as the prophets. There we go. The writer then takes up the measurements that were given and calculates a velocity at the circumference of a wheel of about 166 yards per second. Apparently considering that especially incredible. So just for anyone that didn't listen to the last episode, I do recommend you listen to all these in order. But the last episode we ended off with the sighting of wheels of light, wheels that had spokes on them of light, on either side of this boat out in the water. And so now I lost my spot. But that's okay, I will find it again. So, okay, there it is. So yeah, that's what we're talking about here. And so, apparently, yeah, considering that especially incredible. There we go. He then says, from the nom de plume, I'm not sure, he assumes it might be inferred that your correspondent is in the habit of sailing close to the wind. He asked permission to suggest an explanation of his own. It is that before 1:30 p.m., there had been numerous accidents to the main brace, and that had required splicing so often that almost any ray of light would have taken on a rotary motion. Okay. Anyway, in Knowledge, January 25th, 1884, Mr. Brace, in quotation marks there, answers and signs himself J.W. Robertson, in quotation marks. I don't suppose I'm guessing in McDonald's because A period MC period D period, but means any harm. But I do think it's rather unjust to say a man is drunk because he sees something out of the common. I agree with that. If there's one thing I pride myself upon, it's being able to say that never in my life have I indulged in anything stronger than water, in quotation marks. Also, just putting this out there, I've heard a lot of shows talk about all these anomalous things, and they point out that not all people that are drunk are seeing anomalous things all the time when they're drunk. So, anyway, but even then, in this case, the person that saw whatever they saw here says they never had any alcohol at the time anyway. So, from this curiosity of pride, he goes on to say that he had not intended to be exact, but to give his impressions of dimensions and velocity. He ends amiably, in quotation marks, however, no offense taken, where I suppose none is meant, in quotation marks. To this letter, Mr. Proctor adds a note apologizing for the publication of AMCD's letter, which had come about by a misunderstood instruction. Then Mr. Proctor wrote disagreeable letters himself about other persons. What else would you expect in a quasi-existence? The obvious explanation of this phenomenon is that under the surface of the sea, in the Persian Gulf, was a vast luminous wheel, that it was the light from its submerged spokes that Mr. Robertson saw, shining upward. It seems clear that this light did shine upward from this, let me see here, from origin below the surface of the sea. But at first, it is not so clear how vast luminous wheels, each the size of a village, ever got under the surface of the Persian Gulf. Also, there may be some misunderstanding as to what they were doing there. Yeah. A deep-sea fish and its adaptation to a dense medium, that at least in some regions aloft, there is a medium dense, even to gelatinousness. A deep-sea fish brought to the surface of the ocean in a relatively attenuated medium, it disintegrates. Superconstructions adapted to a medium in interplanetary space, sometimes by stresses of various kinds, they are driven into the Earth's thin atmosphere. Later, we shall have data to support just this, that things entering this Earth's atmosphere disintegrate and shine with a light that is not the light of incandescence, shine brilliantly, even if cold. Vast wheel-like superconstructions. They enter this Earth's atmosphere and, threatened with disintegration, plunge for relief into an ocean or into a denser medium. Of course, the requirements now facing us are not only data of vast wheel-like superconstructions that have relieved their distresses in the ocean, but data of enormous wheels that have been seen in the air or entering the ocean or arising from the ocean and continuing their voyages. Very largely we shall concern ourselves with enormous fiery objects that have either plunged into the ocean or risen from the ocean. That's fascinating. It's one thing if something falls in, but because that can be a number of things, meteors and all that. But when you're rising from the ocean, that's something different. Our acceptance is that though disruption may intensify into incandescence, apart from disruption and its probable fieriness, things that enter this Earth's atmosphere have a cold light which would not, like light from molten matter, be instantly quenched by water. Also, it seems acceptable that a revolving wheel would, from a distance, look like a globe. That a revolving wheel, being relatively close by, looks like a wheel in few aspects. The mergers of ball lightning and meteorites are not resistances to us. Our data are of enormous bodies. So we shall interpret, and what does it matter? Our attitude throughout this book, that here are extraordinary data, that they never would be exhumed and never would be massed together unless here are the data. I'm just going to check out things here real quick in the chat because, looking at the chat here, drinking spirits, the spirits keep me young. Yep, there we go. But, so let's see what else Foy has to say here. Our first datum is of, something that was once seen to enter an ocean. It's from the Puritanic publication Science, which has yielded us little material, or which, like most Puritans, does not go upon a spree very often. Whatever the thing could have been, my impression is of tremendousness, or of bulk many times that of all meteorites in all museums combined. Also of relative slowness, or of long warning of approach. The story in Science 5-242 is from an account sent to the Hydrographic Office at Washington from the branch office at San Francisco, that at midnight, February 4th, 1885, latitude 37 degrees north and longitude 170 degrees east, or somewhere between Yokohama, probably saying that wrong, and Victoria, the captain of the bark, that's supposed to be barge, I don't know, Innerwich, and that's inner and then WICH, was aroused by his mate, who had seen something unusual in the sky. This must have taken appreciable time. The captain went on deck and saw the sky turning fiery red. In quotation marks, all at once, a large mass of fire appeared over the vessel, completely blinding the spectators. In quotation marks. The fiery mass fell into the sea. Its size may be judged by the volume of water cast up by it. It's said to have rushed toward the vessel with a noise that was deafening. In quotation marks there. The bark was struck flat aback, and, in quotation marks, a roaring white sea passed ahead. The master, an old, experienced marine, declared that the awfulness of the sight was beyond description. End quotation marks. In Nature 37-187 and Astronomy 1887-76, we are told that an object described as, in quotation marks, a large ball of fire, in quotation marks, was seen to rise from the sea near Cape Race. I'm not sure where that is. We are told that it rose to a height of 50 feet and then advanced closer to the ship. That's scary. Then moving away, remaining visible about 5 minutes. The supposition in nature is that it was ball lightning, but Flammarion, Thunder and Lightning, page 68, says that it was enormous. That's fascinating. A light, like a fiery spear of light, not just going into the water, but coming out of it and then flying almost like a UFO in a way. Let's see. Details in the American Meteorological Journal, 6-443, November 12th, 1887. British steamer Siberian. That the object had moved, quotation marks, against the wind, end quotation marks, before retreating. That Captain Moore said that at about the same place he had seen such appearances before. Pretty sure I've never heard of ball lightning coming out of the water. Anyway, a report of the British Association, 1861-30, that upon June 18th, 1845, according to the Malta Times, from the brig Victoria, about 900 miles of Adalia, Asia Minor, 36 degrees, 40 feet, I'm not sure. Yeah, 40 feet, 56 inches north, latitude, let's see, 13 degrees, 44 minutes, oh, it's minutes, I think. 36 seconds, I'm guessing, I'm not sure. E long, it says. 3 luminous bodies were seen to issue from the sea at about half a mile from the vessel. They were visible about 10 minutes. That's fascinating. Things coming out of the ocean, the waters. The story was never investigated, but other accounts that seem acceptably to be other observations upon this same sensational spectacle came in, as if of their own accord, and were published by Professor Baden-Powell. One is a letter from a correspondent at Mount Lebanon. He describes only 2 luminous bodies. Apparently they were 5 times the size of the moon. Wow, okay. Each had appendages, or they were connected by parts that are described as sail-like or streamer-like, looking like large flags blown out by a gentle breeze. So here you have lights, big lights, with what appear to be almost like, again, I don't know, extensions from them. And what's amazing about that is I've heard of that, but in a much smaller size. People nowadays seeing lights with either spikes or bumps or tentacles or all that kind of stuff. Even shadows, same thing. Anyway, the important point here is not only suggestion of structure, but duration. The duration of meteors is a few seconds. Duration of 15 seconds is remarkable. But I think there are records up to half a minute. This object, if it were all one object, was visible at Mount Lebanon about 1 hour. That's quite a while. An interesting circumstance is that the appendages did not look like trains of meteors, which shine by their own light, but seem to shine by light from the main bodies. And that was in quotation marks there. About 900 miles west of the position of the Victoria is the town of Adalia, Asia Minor. At about the time of the observation reported by the captain of the Victoria, the Reverend F. Howlett, F-R-A-S, those their initials, was in Adalia. He too saw this spectacle and sent an account to Professor Baden-Powell. In his view, it was a body that appeared and then broke up. He placed duration at 20 minutes to half an hour. In the report of the British Association, 1860-82, the phenomenon was reported from Syria and Malta as two very large bodies, in quotation marks, nearly joined. Might be reports. A report of the British Association, 1860-77, that at Cherbourg, France, January 12th, 1836, was seen a luminous body, seemingly 2/3 the size of the moon. It seemed to rotate on an axis. Central to it, there seemed to be a dark cavity. That's fascinating, too. Oops, I shouldn't have. Oh, yes, actually I did. There we go. Let's see. I lost my space. There we go. For other accounts, all indefinite but distortable into data of wheel-like objects in the sky, see Nature 22-617, London Times, October 15th, 1859, Nature 21-225, Monthly Weather Review, 1883-264, Astronomy, 1894-157. Let's see how long the next paragraph is. It goes to the end of the page. So I think I'm going to stop there because I don't want to be in the middle of the paragraph. That's not fun. But this is all fascinating, these lights that are being seen. And so, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, no problem there. I see the Mattel. But this is fascinating. Objects not only going down into the water, but coming out of it. These lights, and this last one there, a light, it sounds like light with like darkness in the middle of it. That's fascinating too. It's amazing to me to hear about these sightings of all these things way before any kind of aircraft that we know of. I'm guessing there wouldn't be a way to put a bunch of lights on a balloon back in the 1800s without catching the balloon on fire. So what are all these things? I think at the very least they seem anomalous. Are they sort of plasma entities, consciousness moving around? Do they come from this planet? Did they come here and then stay here for a while and then come out of the water and travel around? I have no idea. But again, this goes back to this idea of Fort talking about what we think of now as UFOs, unidentified flying objects, and aliens or other consciousness or beings back before that was common. So, but that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you all for listening, and I will talk to you all next time on Salsido Paranormal. Take care.